Welcome back to the Tariff Hanger. This is Mike. Today I want to talk to you about something a little bit different. Everybody's been asking me about these tariffs. How will it impact? Almost every video I get at least one or two questions about my thoughts on tariffs that are going to be imposed on China, Canada, and Mexico. And with that, that's not quite enough for just one video. And responding right away, you don't have as much information. I actually have information to share. Got some receipts and proof and show what's going on, how it could affect us and how it could not affect us. Also, we'll discuss the deflation, how to get prices down overall. And people are concerned prices are going to go up because of tariffs. And then you always hear about eggs. I'm going to talk about eggs real quick. I mean, it's just some basic common stuff. We're going to get into talking about this and how toy inflation, toy tariffs are going to affect us. Coming up. All right, getting into the facts. Here are the facts. There's going to be a 25% additional tariff on Canadian goods and Mexican goods that are brought into the U.S., 10% additional tariff on China. Now, the reason for this, there's a lot of reasons, but it is an economic reason. It's to generate money for the U.S. to operate and take that pressure off of citizens. And with that, we're seeing that these are the three largest trade partners for the U.S., or actually the largest import countries that we import their goods to the U.S. That's why it's being imposed. But also, there's a dual mandate on Canada and Mexico, and it has to do with the border. So we'll talk about Canada and Mexico first. This is purely economics, but a lot of people don't even understand math. Math doesn't math for some people. Canada and Mexico have agreed to send troops to the border to lock down the border. And that's good for a whole lot of reasons. You're not a country if you don't have borders. That's all there is to it. And you have systems for immigration, and I will tell you that I don't have anything against people migrating or immigrating over here legally. It's the illegal immigration that bothers 70% of American citizens, and so that is effectively shut down. Think about this. What's going on right now, a lot of people are upset about ICE coming out, and they are deporting people. But they've never done the math on it. If they're only able to do about 1,000 a day, that's 365,000 in a year, and over the course of the next 4 years, maybe at best 2 million. And so it would take 54 years to get rid of the 20 million people that have set foot in the U.S. illegally since January of 2021. That's 54 years to make up for 4 years. Again, 4 years of what's going on with the situation will take 54 years to rectify. Now, if they can meet their goal of 2,000 a day, that would be 27 years, but it doesn't look like they're doing that. Anyway, pointing out the math, pointing out that we're on hold for, a month for the 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico, and I don't know what's going to happen after that. Now, as for China, the 10% tariff is in effect right now. It's going on right now, and I've got a couple things that we can check. But I'm going to compare it to what's going on in the UK. UK has a VAT tax. When you order something on eBay and you place that order and it's from outside of the UK, they automatically add a 20% VAT tax. Meaning that if I were to buy something from France or I were to buy something from Italy and have it shipped to my friend in the UK where he would hold a few goods for me and then send me one package at a time instead of spending $50 per item to ship it from the UK, it works out as a nice deal there. So I get to see firsthand what this VAT tax does when you're ordering it from another country. But if they order it within the UK, there is no VAT tax because it's within the UK. And that's how that works. Now, this would only work as China only, and then possibly, which I'm not believing that's how it's going to work either, possibly would be Canada and Mexico 25%. But I've got proof that it's not affecting anything yet. Now, I found something cheap. It was like a cheap upgrade kit, something along those lines, and it's a leg filler upgrade kit for Legacy Kickback. Then I clicked on it to buy it now and to see what I would have to pay, and as of right now, there's no additional tax for that to get shipped in. Now, will there be something that you have to pay at the post office? Will there be some COD you pay at the door? I don't believe that's what's going to happen, but that's not happening yet. That hasn't happened yet and it's not happening with eBay. But as you saw with the VAT tax, that's something that eBay already includes, and if it was a thing right now going into effect, then we'd see it, right? So I clicked on the lemon tree. It's a Shockwave. I think it's the Revenge, not the Nemesis. It's a Revenge. Anyway, $75, and then I didn't get charged any additional anything at ShowZ. So I didn't pay for it, and I get nervous when I start clicking on these things, and you're one button away from paying for something. But just show no additional charges were being added, and I don't believe there ever will be at ShowZ. It's just my belief. Now, that's how I buy 90% of my stuff. That's all there is to it. I buy 90% of my stuff either from ShowZ, I order it from eBay, sometimes I get it internationally, sometimes I send it to a friend, and friend saves up and sends me one big package. I do things like that, and I'm largely unaffected, but retailers are saying that there is going to be some sort of an impact from this on retailers. And they're starting to talk about like Temu, and I'm not really sure what this PacSun is. I've never ordered from it, but talking about toy items and stuff like that would go up and get that 10% tariff on it. And if you're buying from certain retailers, it probably will. Like Amazon and them that are already charging you tax on things will probably do that. But if you're not seeing it on eBay, and eBay charges you tax, I don't see why any of these other ones would. Also getting to look in here, Mattel has come out saying that they may have to raise prices because of this. Now you're talking about 10%. Now there's things that they do that could completely get around that 10%. There's a lot of things. First of all, if it shipped to another country and then shipped to the US, that's one thing that some companies are going to do to try to get out of this. I mean, there's things that companies do. But I want to point out that they could also, to make up that 10%, one less paint app on a figure and then one less accessory on a figure, maintain their $25 price point. But I think that we're going to be getting into a situation pretty soon when you start talking about prices dropping. Prices are going to need to drop so that they can actually sell their product, and we're about to get into all of that. But they're going to need to look to figure out how they can get the average figure down below $20, because the $25 price point's not working very well. And they've already cut production on a lot of things, not just Mattel, Hasbro, all the companies, also with McFarlane and others. They've already cut their production, and with that, they still need to maintain a minimum order quantity, a minimum level to even make a profit. So they'll start looking at less paint apps, less items in the package. That's probably going to happen. Now, before I get into talking about how we get prices down, how will prices come down? I want to talk about eggs. Now, this is the talking point that I hear all the time. People are like, oh, now January 20th, eggs should be back to $2.37 for an 18-pack. And I'm thinking, yeah, that sounds great. That would be nice to have $2.37 for an 18-pack again. Problem is that the last 8 months, they've been slaughtering millions of chickens. You got to have chickens to make the eggs. And it takes a long time. It could take 1.5 years, 2 years for egg prices to get back to normal. And it doesn't bother me that much because I buy 2 18-packs a month. So I'm spending an additional $8. Not the end of the world for eggs. But it's the talking point. It's the fun talking point, and it's the easy one to see. By the way, I could trade eggs for fans' toys. Prices on all goods and services are extremely high, and we've seen the largest bout of inflation of my entire life topped out in 2022, if you can see that. And you got to go back and scrape into the mid to early 70s to see this level of inflation that we have seen. And I got to tell you, it hasn't gone away. In fact, they paused on interest rate drops because inflation is still creeping back up. So got to do everything you can to get rid of inflation, to get it in line. And actually, we would be doing well as a world, not just the US, the entire world, if we just don't see any more inflation and prices stay the same for the next 5 years. But no, that wouldn't happen unless there's drastic changes. Now getting into what do we do to get prices down? How can things get cheaper? How can our dollar that we work so hard for be worth more or maintain its value? And it is through deflation. Deflation is one of those things that scares governments, scares central banks, because they know they can't control it. Once it starts going into deflationary territory for a while, it can spiral out of control, and it's a problem. but it's a good thing for citizens. It's a good thing for consumers because prices will drop. But it's also a bad thing for consumers because you have some unintended consequences of it. But how do you get deflation? So the way you get deflation is something called a recession or a depression. It doesn't sound good, and it sounds painful, and it's scary and terrifying to everybody. The reality of it is what happens during those periods are price reductions. Prices go down. Prices go down because of the fact that there's less demand, lower demand, it's law of demand, and all that kind of stuff. We saw this already, that we've been in a recession/depression since early 2022. But the thing is, they've covered it all up. But before I get into how they've covered this up, I want to cover the difference between deflation and what you're seeing as clearance. So when you see something that's on clearance at your Walmarts and at your Targets, that is, the SKU is being marked down temporarily, or that one item's marked down temporarily. Get it out the door. Fresh new product comes in at the $25 price point, the higher price point. So the inflation that we've felt for the last 4 years, which is about 130% on average for the goods and services that we consume. And then it doesn't really matter that a plasma TV is cheaper. I don't need another plasma TV. But with all of that, the clearance price doesn't mean anything. It's just getting rid of the old, the new stuff come in. Deflation is when the new stuff comes in, and instead of $25, it's $19.99. Okay, so back to this fun stuff here. If you look and you see that we had deflation, we had a negative GDP, this is what you would expect. You would expect that we would see a while. How long? A year? 2 years? A recovery. So we have price recovery so that we don't have to do crazy things to keep up with rampant, massive inflation. And with this, there's one thing that happened in 2022 around Q1, and that was Ukraine invasion. Now, I'm not going to go too much deeper into all of that, but the truth is money was created out of thin air to send over to Ukraine, and lots of it, by the way. Not quite $1 trillion, though. I thought it was over $1 trillion. It's less than $1 trillion. But it did affect inflation. It did affect the debasing and devaluing of the US dollar and all of the other excess crazy spending, which now we're finding out all of this, and it is insane how much money was spent on stuff that 90% of American citizens wouldn't want to spend on. And it was to cover up the fact that we are in a recession, depression, and now that we stop that, we're going to see real numbers, and the real numbers will prove recession, depression. All right, what is the first sign that you are in a recession or a depression? Do you remember this from 2 years ago? Hasbro cutting 1,100 jobs and all this stuff. Then they came back and cut 700 jobs. Then they cut more jobs. Now, this is just Hasbro. So, okay. Toy industry is struggling, and that's just the way it is, right? I mean, people might think that, but that's not really at all it. It's almost every corporation, every company is cutting back. You look at companies with biggest workforce reductions in 2024, Intel, Tesla, Cisco. A lot of these tech companies are laying off, and it is what it is. You see this during recessions, and you see this during depressions. This is the biggest downside to prices going down. Well, you have to cut the workforce, you have to cut costs, or those companies just wouldn't exist. I mean, in all reality, it may sound horrible because it is, but if they didn't do it, those companies would exist. So the few people that they still employ, well, they still employ millions, wouldn't have jobs either. And we're going to see hiring freezes, more layoffs, and we're going to cut the government. So the government is, staffing-wise, 4 times too big than we should be. And if they only cut it 50%, they still haven't cut enough. And that's coming soon. And those are high-paid individuals that are going to be getting laid off. The layoffs are there. And this is all going to be deflationary, depression level type of situation going forward. And it's going to be for a short period of time, and then we kind of rebuild and build from it. One of the bigger problems that we're going to see during a deflationary period, during a recession/depression, is the fact that we've got 10%, which when I was pulled this number last, it said 11%. So unions are shrinking. The people that are part of unions are shrinking because those jobs are being eliminated. A lot of the union jobs are being eliminated, and it's one of those things that 10% of workers that are basically minimum wage workers that have negotiated a $30 an hour salary or a $30 an hour wage, plus an additional $9 an hour worth of benefits and so on and so forth, those jobs are going to go away. They're going to be eliminated. But that's how prices go down. Prices go down. You may even start seeing historical renegotiations of lower salaries and less benefits just to keep those jobs in existence. All right, so that's really all I got on this topic. I don't truly think it's going to be inflationary from this. I think companies will make the changes they need to make and understand that we're not in an environment you can raise prices, so they will have to do a little bit of shrinkflation on their products to perceive the same thing. And I think that individually, if you're buying it from Shozy Store or eBay or something like that, that it's not going to impact you either. But then again, I've got proof now. A month from now, things might change. And if so, I'll make another video. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Tariff, hang around.